Hey guys, it's Joe Carrell here in Nashville, Tennessee, coming back to you for part 2 of group processing and stereo bus processing with our friends at Plug-in Alliance. So if you watched episode 1, we talked about this hybrid approach between traditional, we'll call it bottom-up mixing, versus what some people now call top-down mixing, which is really heavy-handed stereo bus treatment. I actually prefer a hybrid. I don't really like heavy-handed stereo treatment. So we've got this system going where, as you can see here, we already went through step 1 and 2. And what we're going to do today, we're going to pick up where we left off. In episode 1, we talked about step 1, which was processing each group with saturation. Then we went right into compression using these beauties here, some of these guys here. A little compression across each group. Now we've got our mix sounding a whole lot better than it did. For step number 3, what we're going to do, we're going to start engaging EQ, all right? And then there's a step 4, which is stereo widening. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to play a little bit of the song so you can hear where we left off in the last episode, using just saturation and compression.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, why you gotta hurt them all? You know that they hurt it all.
All right, it's already a lot better than what the raw track sounded like. You know, we're getting more compression, the good side of compression with just a couple dB here and there giving us impact and emotion and all things good, right? We're getting the girth of saturation. But now we need to start dialing in the EQ a little bit. So let's break it down one at a time. And we're gonna listen to the Maag here. Our buddy Cliff, years ago came up with the airband here. And, PA has done an incredible job of making that in a plug-in form here. Now you'll see I have 40,000 cycles selected. That seems really, really high, but it's a broad stroke, right? So when we really boost the gain here, usually I have it somewhere around 6 and 8 dB. It's just a little bit of air that in our audible range, but I'm going to really boost it up to around 10 so you can really hear what boosting, even though it sounds like it's something we shouldn't be able to hear, I want you to hear the impact. Okay, here we go.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, why you gotta hurt them all? You know that they hurt it all.
All of a sudden we have this nice air all around Chase's voices. And what we're going to do is that's about all the EQ I'm going to do because I want to save room down the line to differentiate Chase's lead from his backgrounds. Sometimes the backgrounds in my mixes are much darker than the lead or much brighter, and I want to have room to do that. So this is just giving me an overall image of air and I'm done. All right. On the drums and bass, let's bring up this monster, the Lindell TE-100. This guy, it has 12 tubes in the original unit, but you'll see I've just got 2 dB boost in the bottom end, 2 dB right here on the top end. And then I don't usually do this, but just for the sake of this video, I'm also boosting, it looks like a dB and a half or so of upper mids for the impact of the snare drum. All right, so I want you to hear the impact that we're doing the drums and bass group. I want you to hear the impact just a little bit of EQ has. And not only is it the EQ, it's the fact that we're going through this EQ and all of its tubes. Ready? Here we go. Our bottom end has more sustain and girth to it. Our snare drum, has some energy, and our entire kit has some life that it didn't have beforehand. Okay, so that's that. Okay, and for our keyboard bus here, we've got the AMEK EQ200, and the reason I switch over to this guy a lot for things like keyboards and strings, not only is it an amazing sounding EQ, but we can enter mid-side mode. Okay, and what that allows us to do, we have the left-hand side of the screen here that is EQing everything that would appear the same in both speakers. So kind of think of that, the middle, right? It just makes sense. Whereas the right-hand side becomes our far extremes, and it's only EQing the frequencies that are different between the two sides, okay? So we can EQ those differently and create just a really cool dimension of air, as well as a dimension of, carving away certain elements that maybe we want other elements of the mix to take up. Make a little room for them. And I'll show you basically what I'm accomplishing. I'm cutting a little bit of this frequency right here. See right here? I want to show you this little button right here in the middle, auto listen. It's a really great tool that you can use. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to unbypass this. And we're going to listen to just the frequency in the low mids that I'm dipping. Okay, here we go. Okay, just a little below 200 cycles. And you may ask, why is he dipping anything, or why is he choosing that frequency? That's where the muscle of my electric guitar is going to live. I've got power chords that are hard panned, as well as acoustic guitars, and that's where that bottom end energy and size and muscle from the electrics are going to live. So I'm going to carve just a little bit of it out of the sides where the guitars are panned, okay? As well, I'm also lifting the air just a little bit up here. It looks like around 11K, okay? Let's listen to that. Okay, so that's just a little sizzle on that, on the pads and that lead synth line that's going on. That's just adding just a little air. So let me do the entire group in bypass, and then I'll add it after a bar or so. Okay, there we go. It's not too heavy-handed. I still have plenty of room to tailor each synth individually with EQ down line, but I'm making it just a little bit better at this stage. All right, our last subgroup is guitars. And I'm going to bring up the Millennia. This is a great sounding circuit. What a lot of most of these are modeled on incredible analog circuits. And one thing that we know is incredible analog circuits, a lot of them have a way of adding a depth or dimension to a signal that didn't exist before it went in. This tool for me does that same thing. I get this extra layer of dimension and realism and depth that I don't get without it. But also I'm going to add a little bit of zing to the edges where the acoustic guitar lives. I'm going to add just a little bit of upper mid bite to our electrics, and I'm also ducking just a little bit because these guitars were intentionally recorded very dark, so I had lots of room for additive EQ later, okay, because I like the sound of that. So let me show you what it's doing, okay? Okay, great. It's clearing a little space, getting just a little more shimmer, just a little the pick attack on the acoustic, is a little more pronounced in a good way. And so that is that step there. Okay, now all these elements are combining to the stereo master, and I'm going to EQ that subtly. All right. So I'm not, I'm just lifting the air just a little bit. Who doesn't love the sound of a passive circuit, like let's say a Pultec type circuit on the final stereo bus? It's the beautiful high, the most beautiful high-end lift that you can just about get. It's so sweet. We have that here in the mega bundle with the Bettermaker. And what we can do, we can add a little air right here. See that I'm only adding a dB or two, and that's at 12K. But what we can also do is the old Pultec trick where we boost and cut our low frequencies, but because the filter shapes are different sizes, it changes the sound. It sounds strange for you that's never done it before, but you can boost and cut the same frequency, and it's more better when it comes out the other end. It adds some just some size without adding mud. Okay, so I've got Looks like about 2.5 dB at 30 cycles. I know that sounds super, super low, but think of these as broad stroke guys. They paint, their paintbrush is pretty wide. All right, and then I'm also cutting, looks like a dB and a half. So 2.5 raised by 1.5 cut, all right? And then I'm also high filtering at around 30 cycles. And here's the impact that's making across the entire master. I'll let a little bit go and then unbypass it.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, why you gotta hurt them all? You know that they heard it all. Mirror, mirror on the wall, you know that it's all your fault. You know that you got them all. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, 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 oh.
You hear that? It's just the extremes of our mix, the very top end and the very bottom end, but there's more, the top end is more airy and pretty, and the bottom end is a little more muscly. All right, so let's bypass all of the EQ. Listen to just a minute of it, all right, just a little bit, and then I'll unbypass it, and you'll hear the big picture where just a couple dB here and there are making our entire mix much more radio ready, you know, radio friendly right away before we even touch our individual tracks, okay?
Mirror, mirror on the wall, why you gotta hurt them all? You know that they heard it all. Mirror, mirror on the wall, you know that it's all your fault. You know that you got them all. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, 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 oh.
All right, love it. And that's, again, remember, that's just minor changes, but it's, you know, it's still allowing me lots of room down the line. In addition to everything that we've done so far, there's a step 4, which is stereo width enhancing. Okay, I do that in 2 ways. Number 1 is obviously across the stereo bus. Just make the whole mix just a little bigger, more impressive. And what I really like about this, you'll see right here down at the bottom, stereo width. And you'll see it's probably about 120. That's like a go-to for me. I don't want to get carried away with it, but I like what that process does, not to the middle, right? And it's not even about what it does to the extremes, our hard panned elements, but it clears just a little space in the you know, between there in the mix. It just makes it a little more open, a little more transparent sounding, and I really like that. All right, so in and of itself, that's a great technique. What I do is I take it a little step further, and within my subgroups here, I can use a processor that widens across any of those subgroups. In this particular mix, based on, you know, what I got going on, I chose to do that across the keyboard bus. So I've got all these airy synths going on that have, you know, pads and that lead line synth. And what I'm doing down here at the bottom, you'll see I have this engaged, and it's also set to 120. What this accomplishes is I have my vocals, my drums, and my guitars right here, like in you know, where they normally are. And then I have the keyboards, all the airy elements. I'm widening them, bringing them out a little bit outside of the speakers, let's say. So those airy elements are kind of wrapping around Chase's vocal and the other things. And then I've got that going on in addition to the stereo bus. And so it's just creating a little more separation, a little you know, enhancement of the image in a way that sounds really good to my ears. So that's going to be hard to demonstrate by itself. But what I do want to do in closing, I want to bypass everything. And then we're going to listen to the raw track. We're going to listen to how much of how much better we made it with just saturation, then how much better it got with compression, then how much better it got with EQ and stereo width.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, why you gotta hurt them all? You know that they heard it all. Mirror, mirror on the wall, you know that it's all your fault. You know that you got them all. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, 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 oh.
Instantly, we have, before I even touch anything downline, I have a more radio ready, polished, finished sound. But the important thing that I want to get across is, while I am adding maybe 4 dB of compression overall, or maybe 4 dB of EQ overall, or more, it's in stages across subgroups that don't have a negative impact on other groups. And so I'm just getting that benefit of tying groups together with compression, tying our overall mix together with compression, without the negative consequences of loud elements having negative effects compression-wise, on quieter elements, as well as EQ. I'm leaving lots of room downline to do what I want to do with individual processors, as well as I'm not adding too much high end to any one group, just because I'm overdoing it at one step on the final stereo bus. I hope that helps somebody. Play around this with this technique, and by all means, just because I'm using the Shadow Hills here or the SPL Iron here, try this obviously, but there's a ton of great plugins within the Plugin Alliance family. Like we said, the Elysia, there's so many great compressors. Try to create your own flavor. Don't try to recreate my flavor. Try to find your own voice, your own way, and really get in there and dive into that mega bundle collection that we have, and find out what processes and processors work best for you, all right? Happy mixing, guys.